Am I recording? Am I good? You good? All right, folks. JD Solomon, facilitator, calling the December meeting of the PD River Council to order. And to call the meeting order, give you the objectives as always. It's pretty simple today. Matt's going to give us a little overview of the plan, and we're going to take our initial consensus vote on the plan. And in that process, I'll talk about that in a second. Everybody will have a chance to give us some input to make sure we're good to go. We'll also discuss the public meetings, which I think we agreed last time would be here. So those aren't going to be required for you guys, the RBC members, although we'd like all the RBC members that want to come to be here if possible, because I think that's a good show of force. If y'all, as many of y'all are here as possible. So those will be in January and February. Anything else for the agenda that you see here? Okay, hearing none, let's do an approval of the October 22nd meetings and the minutes and the summary. Any comments or anything for Tom? Not been shared. We'll have a motion to approve. Ready, Kevin? Michael Hemingway moves. Second was Megan. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Very good. Okay, so I will have a slide on this later, but ultimate end goal will be when we meet in February, I'm going to assume, or maybe March, probably be March actually by the schedule. We will take the final vote, and that'll be a thumbs up, thumbs down, majority was kind of vote to adopt the plan. Backing things up, there will be two public comment sessions. We will take public comments. We will tweak the plan. That's what your final vote's going to be on. Today is really the first cut, kind of the fist to five vote. You can go 1 to 5, 5 being I'm gonna walk away. I hate this. This is terrible after all this time. 1 being I love it, can live with it. It's exactly what I want. The most important thing though is it is 1 to 5, but it is to get your comments. So what we'll do is we'll do a little roll call vote of everybody online and here. And in that, I'll let you guys give your comments of what you want to say about it. Some of you may say it's a 3. Well, you didn't hate it. So what did you like about it? Right? People that give it a 1 or a 4 or 5, I'm gonna say, well, you had to like something about it if you gave it a 4, right? So I just want to hear the good positive feedback, and then anything we need to work on to make this plan approvable when we come back in February. This is the goal. Okay. Questions or comments on any of that? Okay. We do have a quorum, so that was important for today. We do, because that is a decision day, so we do have a quorum online. And Jason had to start just a few minutes early to go through the agenda, but you're good. Okay, any other comments or questions? You need me, Scott? You want to say something?
Yeah, it's my name.
Okay. Are we not online?
We are.
Okay.
He just needs to switch over to the.
Okay, very good. So with that, I guess what I'll say too is you guys have read, I've talked to almost every one of you, I think, or left messages or whatever, but y'all have had a chance to look at it in its original form. I was probably one of the last to look at it again. We looked at the original chapters. I looked at it again last week, like Monday, Tuesday, and I might be the reason Matt was late getting it to you or won't get to you Wednesday. But here's the bottom line. I don't think y'all found a lot of comments in that last review. I didn't find a lot. So not a lot has changed since you moved through some of the original chapters and then that first review you got. Matt's going to give you a quick overview, Matt.
I'll get it. I'll do my best.
But of things that change. I think we got 45 minutes or an hour for this blocked off. So
It won't take that long.
okay. But just relax. There's not a whole lot of wholesale changes that have taken place if you haven't read the whole document. We also want to do this to make sure if you didn't get to some of those lengthy chapters, and some of those were pretty lengthy, man, it has to be that you do get a little synopsis and a chance to ask Matt questions. Okay. So with that, if Scott's ready, Matt, you ready?
Yep.
All right. Yep. All yours.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Yes, sir.
What do you want to quote?
The presentation. Yeah. Okay,
All right.
great. Well, I wanted to give you, as JD mentioned, we've been looking at these chapters as we've gone through this process, and not a ton has changed, but I wanted to go through and just describe in a nutshell what changes have occurred since our October meeting. And I'll talk about those. We had a lot of really great discussion. I took all of that feedback and then went into the plan and made a lot of small changes, I guess, just based on some of the specific comments you made during those discussions. And then that version of the plan went out to you on November 5th, and we had 2 weeks to review that. And I also wanted to talk about some of the comments that you had during that November 5th to November 19th timeframe, and sort of how we adjusted the plan to reflect those. Again, there weren't a ton. And a lot of the focus of the review was on the executive summary, because the full report is 200 and some pages, and everybody has day jobs, and so that was would have been a big load to get through. So, and the executive summary, frankly, is probably what people are going to look at, and so it was appropriate to spend some time on that. And then DES staff also did a review of the plan, and I have some additional detail that we wanted to include in the plan that I wanted to just give you a quick summary of some of that additional detail that went into the plan. I think that to comment, everything that you all your feedback was incorporated in the plan. Most of it wholesale. A few things I made a couple of tweaks, but it generally, I think, reflects the intent of what the comments were, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So, as I mentioned earlier, most of our discussion in October was on Chapter 10. As I was making edits to the plan in Chapter 10, it really required changes to other chapters to reflect the feedback in Chapter 10. So, we talked a little bit about water loss control, and you can identify where you may be losing water in the public supply system, but you have to have money in order to make those improvements to fix that water loss. And if you need to raise rates, that needs to be done in a responsible and an affordable way. And so I added language in Chapter 10, but I needed to go back to Chapter 6, where we talk about water loss control as a water management strategy, and make sure that that feedback was reflected there. Drought management strategy, we talked about industry developing drought management plans, and that's probably not something that any industry is going to do. That sounds too much like a regulatory thing. So we changed the language around that to collaborating on best practices during drought. And so maybe industries learning from each other on how they manage drought. And that was in Chapter 10, but I also needed to go into Chapter 8. So there were a few different ways in which that discussion around Chapter 10 made its way into other parts of the plan. So a few specific things that were changed in the plan that would have been reflected in that November 5th version of the plan that we sent out for your review. Objective 1 in implementation was really, how do we implement our demand side strategies in the implementation phase. And the original version of that, if you recall, the actions that we had was sort of modeled on other plans, but we kind of reconfigured that to focus on the priorities that this body had identified. And that was a pretty unanimous recommendation that we make that change. So we did that. Jason, you've talked a lot about needing better data. And so we included in objective 4 a specific action focusing on identifying data gaps and coming up with a plan to help fill those. We also, there was a comment in the plan, we talked about the need for the groundwater model, but there was a desire to have that be a specific thing in objective 4 in implementation. So we added that both for the short term to complete the groundwater model, and then in the long-term plan to use that model, update that model, and help make informed decisions in the basin. And then there was some discussion about in October about engaging with North Carolina to better understand how they manage risk with regard to flood. There's been discussion about engaging with North Carolina on drought-related operations. And John had suggested including a short-term action or strategy to meet with that Yadkin PD water management group. And so that was added as well. I mentioned the drought management, how we talk about drought management plans for industry and sort of getting away from that language. We had language in the plan that municipalities should review and update their drought management plans, but we added the word improve, and we had some recommendations in chapter 8 on what that looks like. For example, maybe coordinating on drought, messaging and coordinating on drought actions among different municipalities. I mentioned the water loss control issue earlier. Conjunctive water management strategies, using surface water and groundwater. We talked about it in the plan more of as a supply strategy, but they can also be used in emergency situations during floods when water quality for surface water intakes is really poor. You could rely on groundwater supplies. So that language is added, and that was part of the discussion in October. We had a lot of good discussion about not all water management strategies are applicable in every area, maybe because of local water supply challenges, or maybe there's some regulatory limitations as to what you could do with respect to some of the water management strategies. Language was added in a couple of places to reflect that. And then implementation challenges. There was some discussion about developing clarity on who is going to be implementing the different actions that are listed in chapter 10. And there was, I got the sense that there was a desire for more detail on that. And I steered away from adding a lot more detail on that for a couple of reasons. One, I think if we were to try to identify more specificity on who's doing what in the short-term implementation, it would probably take a few meetings to get to agreement on that. And so we don't really have the time for that. The way that it's laid out now, for each action, it lists, is the RBC in charge of this? Who's going to be helping with that? Is that DNR? Is that DES? Is that contractors? All of that is described in the plan now, and that's very consistent with what is in other basins. So it all kind of hangs together. And I think that when you go to implement, talking at that time about specific actions and who's going to be doing what is going to be very important for moving forward. And I added an additional challenge in chapter 10 that describes this need for clarity. So it's highlighted in the plan. It'll be something then that is recorded and something that you'll want to think about as you move forward with implementation. And then need dedicated state staff to support implementation. We added a little bit more detail on that, and mentioned that some funding and some staff that really focus on implementation would be useful, and will be a challenge if that is not provided. So those were a summary of the edits that were made in the plan pursuant to our October meeting. that were in that November 5th version of the plan that was sent out. I wanted to, are there any questions on that? I went through all the notes and some of the reporting of our discussion to make sure that I addressed everything. Then the comments that we got back, as I mentioned, pursuant to your review from November 5th to November 19th, most of those comments were on the executive summary. There were a few typos or a few requests for, maybe substitute this word for that word or this sentence for that sentence. We took care of all that stuff. We have those one-page summaries for industrial, for agricultural, for municipal water use. It's at the end of the executive summary. As we've been talking about the executive summary, there was some desire for a 1 or 2 pager that you could just hand to somebody. And that was not included in our scope of work. A couple of thoughts on that. One, there's a page, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit, in the executive plan, in the executive summary that says what to know about this plan. It's a 2-page summary of the real highlights. These are the surface water challenges, these are the groundwater challenges, this is how we intend to address it. So that could serve as a handout. It could also be a handout could be developed as part of that outreach plan that is part of implementation. And that would really be an appropriate time to develop that. The other thing, and I thought this was an interesting comment from John Crutchfield. He had seen this figure. It shows the projected demands under the high demand scenario out to the year 2070 for different water use sectors. And one of them, this big sort of teal band, is nuclear power. And John asked me, why are we projecting that nuclear power, water needs for nuclear power are going to go up in the future? And I sort of scratched in my head because that wasn't what the intent was. But then I got to looking at this graph, and my golly, I mean, it sort of shows an increasing trajectory. It's not clear that the width of this teal, bar is the same. So what we did was restack the data over on the right. So now it's really clear that nuclear power, water needs for nuclear power generation are going to be constant in the future. And then it sort of shows those other ones in an increasing way, more appropriately. So I thought that was a really interesting observation, and kind of scratching my head about that for a few minutes, but I was glad that John made that comment. So a few other things. DS was doing a review of the plan concurrently, and there were a few areas where we added some additional detail and some additional observations on issues that were in the plan already, but we were sort of drawing out some more detailed information. One of the areas was on agricultural groundwater use. Most of that use is in the upper and middle parts of the basin. In looking at some of the groundwater hydrographs, the closer you are to the recharge zone, the more stable the groundwater levels are. The farther you get from that recharge zone, you start to see some declines in the groundwater table. In an agricultural setting where you see that sort of agricultural signal in those hydrographs, you see a lot of up and down. And that's reaction to seasonal groundwater use from agriculture. It could be because there's sort of wet years and dry years. So maybe you see some years where there's not as much decline, some years where there's a little more decline, but there's a recovery that happens. And so the implication is that because that agricultural use and that opportunity for recovery during the non-irrigation season, during the wet periods, the long-term declines there likely won't be as much as in other areas where there's constant groundwater use. So just another sort of observation and a little more detail to some language that was there before.
I had a question on the nuclear.
Uh-huh.
You go back to that one. From what I'm hearing, there is nuclear is being relooked again based on state growth. So that demand may go up again.
Okay. Our assumption was that it would stay fairly constant.
I think that's part of your revision of the plan in 5 years as well.
That's
Things are
true.
gonna change.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that other basins, I feel like there has been some projection of increased water demand for energy. Didn't necessarily give a source, but it may be that, and I'm assuming Alex, I don't know if he's on the line, Alex on. If he talked to Duke about their plans, and it could be that, yeah, we may build more nuclear plants somewhere else, but maybe not in the PD, at least in South Carolina, unfortunately. So I don't know, Alex, do you have any clarification on that?
I'm sorry, was there a question for me? I'm having a little bit.
Yeah, that's John. I guess that's
Yeah, that's John.
Or Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
My observation there is, to be another 50 years, I'm not sure we would, that a plant would be in operation 50 years from now. It may be retooled into a different generation source, which may not use as much water. I don't think water usage will go up with the existing conditions.
In the PD basin.
Correct.
and John had mentioned that in some of his comments in the context of this graph, and I had responded that one, we had thought it would, the projection was that it would stay the same, and it's a more assumption. Does that help? Yeah.
Want me to comment on that a little bit?
But
In
Alex,
the broad basin, we projected one of those new fangled projected possibilities of modular nuclear plants in the 99 Islands Reservoir. And that was based entirely on the numbers that were given to us by I believe it was Duke Energy or Duke Power for that site. That has been a site for some time. It's been kind of on again, off again, different plans for that location. So there was a specific location with specific plans. And so since we don't have that for the PD, we didn't project anything. So I'm glad that aligns with Mr. Crutchfield's views on that. And, we could do another scenario, I suppose, or another way to look at that is some of the growth in industry has been, I've been told it's not necessarily realistic for the existing industrial sites. And so we could imagine that could be hypothetically representative of growth, for a new facility. But of course, we don't know spatially where that would be. So that's two different ways of looking at it.
And again, probably more refinements that could be made in subsequent updates to the plan. Yeah.
and certainly probably an issue for statewide plan is more than this plan.
I'm sure most of you have heard about the Georgetown Plan of International Paper being shut down.
Right.
I'm just curious if that reflected any of the, I mean, they have a canal draining water out of the area, and the fear is the Georgetown County is so looking at growth that a lot of these agricultural timber farms growing timber for international paper will be clear cut and housing. And because they're not gonna get any money for their timber now with the plant going. And that could have a lot of effect on the demand for water on a basin that is sinking. And more surface water. And I'm just curious if it's too soon for any of that to figure in, or if that's even, I mean, that could be years away. We could look at it in the future, but something's gonna happen.
I think we talked about it. I think we kind of, after talking to Megan and other people, it was like, it is kind of too soon to tell what was going to happen. And I think Matt and I talked about just the planning process didn't anticipate a large industrial shutting down like that. I don't know of any planning process, which that is a big contributor to space. And
I know they had a canal, but does anyone know, do they have wells, or could they be part of the reason that they not the first?
No.
All of ours comes through the canal,
about 30 million gallons.
30 to 35 million gallons a day.
Yeah.
And the city currently has an agreement that they're pulling off our canal as well. So now there's discussions between city, county, and IP of what does the future look like for that canal?
Yeah.
But we just didn't, we didn't know, and at this point in the plan, I think it was kind of decided that we needed to look at the next revision, not this revision. Because really, when you look at the 35 million gallon a day water withdrawals in the PD basin, I mean, that's a big one, relatively speaking, to even the municipal utilities. And so I don't know that we've had that situation come up in a basin plant yet, that kind of user just stopped. And what does that ripple effect? So I don't think we're gonna know the answer to that yet, for some time. And also, to get to another subject, and Matt talked about it earlier, the putting the point on finishing the groundwater model, but also that hydrodynamic model for the coastal area, it also puts a real big point on that. Because not only is it bringing our surface water out of the PD basin, because we've got this artificial line growing the tidal zone, all the growth is happening in the tidal zone. So that gets to be part of that issue too, that we really need the hydrodynamic model and the groundwater model, as we've recommended, done before we can say much. Is that fair? Is that?
No, that's right. And that's actually a really good segue to one of the other additions that we made to the plan, which was adding some more specificity on some of these groundwater issues along the coast. I mean, that certainly was identified in the plan before. And we talk a lot about the need for a groundwater model. And we talk a lot about our strategies, you know, in general on managing groundwater, but we added some more detail that Andy and Brooke had put together some additional observations on current levels of decline in different areas. Williamsburg and Horry County about 1 foot per year, Georgetown County about 2 feet per year. And if you project that out at those rates of decline, it could be another 50 feet in Williamsburg and Horry counties, another 100 feet in Georgetown County, out to the year 2070, 50 years out into the future. And that could, result in some damage to the Crouch Branch aquifer if, nothing is done about that. And so I think that it, all this is good, and it kind of just reinforces what we have in the plan, that we need a groundwater model in order to really dig into this and look at management strategies that could be effective in reversing or slowing some of these trends. We need more monitoring. We talked a lot about that during some of our breakout sessions a while back. And then, we've got a lot, good menu of water management strategies that need to be implemented in order to stem the tide there. So
I do think too, one place we didn't go much further in, which it goes back to the credibility of plan and why the basin RBC needs to keep meeting, is there's a spinoff of that too, that Michael's experience is you can't see the groundwater happening and say, let's get everybody off groundwater. and put them on surface water for two reasons. We don't know the full impact of surface water in those high growth areas. But as Michael knows, you just can't take staff that used to run groundwater plants and put them running surface water plants. Conjunctive use is not the overnight answer to it because there's a whole set of operators and systems that have to be done. And I think you've got a great success story. We've identified it.
Right.
But you've also had ongoing challenges with operation too, right? It's not a, but we didn't really beat that to death and talk much about it, but that's another reason the RBC needs to keep monitoring and watching those things.
The other thing that we did was update some of the water demands, especially with respect to public water supplies. We had done the compilation of water demands similar to in other basins. We have the surface water demands and that SWAM model, and you add all those up and you have your surface water demand. You have the water demand, the groundwater demands that were put together for the groundwater model. You sum all those up. The surface water and groundwater, that's your basin-wide demand. Well, what that leaves out in the PD are the surface water demands for coastal communities, which makes up a big chunk of the overall surface water demand in the basin. So some of the demand projections there was some questions about, do these make sense? Well, once we realized that those coastal communities had been left out of the initial demand estimate on a basin-wide basis, and add those in, they make a lot more sense. And just show you for the moderate demand scenario, these are the projected water demands for different water use sectors. This is for the moderate scenario out to the year 2070. On the left is what was in there before with the additional demand. You see that out to the year 2070, the line's a little bit higher. The bulk of the change is in this darker blue band towards the top. You can see that's a little bit thicker, actually about twice as thick when you get out to the year 2070. So it made a lot more sense after we made that change. This is for the high demand scenario. It's more pronounced. The sort of thickness of this public water supply projections. So all in all, I think that really was a good improvement to the plan, and again, sort of helps to reinforce the the viability of the plan.
Well, it makes it closer to 100 too, right? I mean, think about the population demand of water. You got this one number. When you look at the PD line west of the fall line or the tidal line, and then you put all that together, it doesn't quite add up. When you put the coastal community demand, that population, it makes it all that closer to what the population would probably totally demand. But I think it's more of an act of just making it look like it's some stuff. 100 more than it is. We left something out.
Yeah.
The plan itself is right for the area above the tidal zone. So there's no real change to that. It's just recognizing there is going to be demand in the coastal zones.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that's about it for the changes to the plan.
Did those changes get adjusted, put in the SWAM model to show where there were deficiencies as you ran through the different models?
So the SWAM model has all of the demands reflected in an accurate way, but it doesn't extend to streams that are in that tidal zone. And that's the demand that we were missing. So SWAM is accurate. The groundwater model demands are accurate, those demands that will be incorporated. But what we need is a model that reflects those tidal zones. And that's something that is in the plan now.
Yeah, another way to say it, y'all remember at the very beginning, we saw this graph of the population, and we saw it like going like this, but when you pulled it out, it was Horry County, it was driving almost all of that, like statewide, it's Horry and Charleston, almost. The rest of PD Basin is relatively flat, it's growing a little bit, but not a lot. So that really just gets that chunk and that tail that shows that rapid demand, because that's where the growth is. So, but everything in the SWAM model was back before that coastal zone, so. the SWAM model was accurate for what the SWAM model was set up to address. Just to have.
So just a few other notes, what I sent out on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, a revised version of the full plan. It includes some appendices, so some detailed information on current and projected water demands. I think there's maybe 30 pages of tables if you really want to take a deep dive. We have some additional information on drought management plans that we had reviewed, and I think you've seen that information before. We just put it in the plan. There are two appendices that will be added. One is the results of RVC voting. Another is the comment and responses from the public on the plan. So those will be added as we go through time here in the next couple of months. And then I also sent out a formatted version of the executive summary. The content is pretty much the very same thing that you had seen before with some of the edits that I made pursuant to your review. But it just looks a lot nicer. This is the cover. We actually were able to borrow the formatting files that CDM had put together for other basins. So this has a similar look and feel to other plans, but it's all specific people content. And did folks have a chance to, did anybody have a chance to really look through that executive summary that I sent out? Right before
A few did.
Thanksgiving?
I spoke to almost everybody. A few did, not everybody.
Okay, I could scroll through it if that would be useful. Just a real quick. Do that?
5 minutes, just roll through it. Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Not a page turn, just a
Right.
bang, bang, banger.
Yeah,
Or they'll stop you when they want to hear more.
yeah, okay. Okay, we'll just do a real quick tour through this. So all right, so we have a forward that just gives a little bit of background about the planning process, acknowledgement page. This page on the right is the first page of that what to know about the plan. So I tried to just in a few bullets highlight the important takeaways. So there's the page on the right, and then that kind of continues to this page on the left. That is really that, what to know about the plan. We talk about the purpose of planning. We talk about the planning process and the different phases and your mission statement and your goals. An overview of the basin, kind of a breakdown of the land cover, a little bit on how precipitation varies, a little bit on protected different fish species to balance out that environmental piece. We talk about surface water supplies and kind of the plumbing of the basin and the SWAM model that evaluates that. We talk about groundwater, identify those areas of concern in the PD basin in this map. We summarize our water demands and kind of break out what that looks like in terms of different sectors. And we talk about water availability and some observations from the surface water modeling that was done with SWAM. We talk about some groundwater observations Based on the sort of evaluation of the groundwater situation using existing data. Also sort of highlighting that, by golly, we need this updated groundwater model. It's the third bullet there on the page on the right, third bullet at the bottom. We list the groundwater management strategies that were evaluated, and then we talk about your priorities. It's the layout what the prioritization results look like. This is all in chapter 7. This is a quick summary of that. Talk about drought response recommendations. We highlight the prioritized policy recommendations, highlight the prioritized technical recommendations. Then we talk about implementation, those 5 different objectives and those priorities. We had several pages where the tables that describe the short-term implementation specific tasks that you'll engage in going forward. This is just a sort of a summary there on the page on the right. We list the implementation considerations and some of those challenges ahead. And then we have the municipal summary page. So it talks about the density of development and where that is occurring, sort of the split between groundwater and surface water supplies basin wide. What's our population look like out in the future? What are our water demands into the future? A few observations on what that may look like, and then 3 of the prioritized water management strategies. And the other 2 summary sheets look fairly similar and have similar content. So that's the executive summary. Any thoughts or questions on that?
On the agricultural side there, on those numbers that you have there, where is that data collected?
So for I think most of this is collected through permitted and measured groundwater withdrawals.
So usually there's a lot of difference between the permitted numbers and what is typically withdrawn.
Here's the question, Matt, that may answer what he's going to. Are those tables replicated from the body of the report, which is tied to references at some point?
Yes.
So these aren't new tables or something different than what's in the report. And I assume everything in the report that I've seen is back reference to reference. So, okay. Now that question, maybe we may need to make it more explicit in the summary document for all sectors that this is based on information from the body of the report, or there's references for it. That's what we need to do. Have the comments. I mean, we're going to revise it again. We're going to get based on public comments, so we can do that.
Yep. And if there are some things that we need to change in this version before it goes out for public comment, we can do that too. We had anticipated maybe there would be some edits based on today's meeting. So we could, depending on when we send that out for public comment.
I have a thought based on our discussion before about the SWAM model. And when you look at the SWAM model and things that are where it shows the problems are they're closer to the tidal plane. And that comment should be highlighted, could be highlighted saying, hey, we don't know what's going on in the tidal plane. We're going to be pulling more water out of these areas. We're going to have more things. If we had a model that went this far, it would show the need for more study and evaluation.
Right, that is a recommendation. There's a recommendation regarding that, I think.
Right, but
Meaning executive summary should be more explicit recommendation.
just the same way, and you're explicitly saying we need the groundwater study, you could say the same thing about the SWAM model studies.
That's a good comment, neat catch, because I think what we did see, he alluded to it earlier, there were some things we said in the body, as there always is, and we approved in the chapters. When we got like the chapter 10 or the policy thing, it was like, does this have enough bite in it? And we tweaked that up a little bit, so make sure we had the bite from the earlier chapters. I read the executive summary several times and I felt like it did, but again, I may need to look at it fresh again from that perspective. Did we put enough bite in the executive summary for that? So, fair point, right, Matt?
Yeah, it is, and I think there's maybe an additional sentence or two we could add to the main body of the report to reflect that, because that is a good point, that that's where the bulk of the population increase is going to occur, and so we really need if conjunctive water management is going to be a tool that's used, we need analysis tools that are going to help us understand surface water supplies and the availability of surface water supplies, and then how that interacts with the use of groundwater, and to really sort of dial in some management strategies.
Yeah, the reference comments. Which we can put on all these pages, because I don't see which pages we can pull off, right?
So in here, it says irrigated agriculture currently uses 36 million gallons per day. Is that 36 million gallons averaged across 365 days, or is that 36 million gallons when it's being used?
No.
I don't know, Alex, did you hear that question? I'm thinking it's probably over a year's time. Like averaged out,
Well, let's find that.
but I
We need to find that out. That's worthwhile.
But I just for tidbit, I mean, just me listening, my quirks is if it's 36 million gallons a day, that's how much irrigated acres in the PD basin, that's how much comes down the IP canal in a day.
That's probably close. Yeah, so and I think it's one of the, because I look at Michael here, because the way we calculate average day and max day is different in different industries, maybe. And Cynthia, you may say the same thing, because we do it one way on water wastewater, we may do it different in ag, but I think we're on the same basis, but we'll look that up and make sure we're on the same.
But all due reality is that just think about that is the percent of agriculture in a day, if that's correct, is using across the whole PD basin. Is using what international paper used that it comes down that canal and you know, it's just traveling down the canal. Probably not using all of it. Some of it's discharged.
It is.
Okay, well, you use all of it there. That's across the whole. That's not what agriculture is.
Well, it could be, but it also says what I said in the beginning, when you try to wrap your head around what IP closing down means and how nothing in the planning process is anticipated that size usually. Dropping.
That's right.
When the plan in the process of being approved.
Because everything we looked at was just
Yes, it was.
this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I don't know where that makes the plan any different. The plan is what we know with the data we know
That's
with that.
exactly right.
We gotta approve it, but again, for y'all with the RBC going forward, it underscores the RBC needs to be watching this and saying active and finishing the models and doing these things. So it really underscores that.
it is an average number over the whole year, and so during the irrigation season, it'd be, of course, more intense.
There is, in the water demand summary, shown ag is a much smaller.
Yeah.
A lot of the other sectors, so it's there. How do your points being shown how it was?
Yeah.
But that's nothing in comparison to what's happening.
Yeah, that's
Like that, yeah.
It's producer.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right, you guys want to take a quick break and then we'll come back and let everybody go through the individual. We'll go through the roll call and see kind of 1 to 5, what everybody thinks. Good for that. Take about a 10-minute break. And then we'll come back. So only 3 quick slides for you guys. It's reflective of what I said earlier at the outset. What's that? Your lights off? Yeah, we'll go back on in a minute.
There we go.
So final vote, February or March. Got to be advertised to the public for public comment, which means we'll probably have our public meeting in early January. We'll talk about that shortly. We'll get comments. As soon as we get comments and can judge them, we will try to schedule the next public meeting for February to judge those comments. And then if all that can get jammed in and there's not a lot of comments, we'll probably try to pull this group back together at the end of February to try to approve the plan. Realistically, what the schedule has in it is there will be public comments. It will take longer than that. So we may be coming back here in third or fourth week of March to approve everything. So that's the plan. So that's why I say February or March. But for all intents and purposes, there's this meeting, public comment two times, and then this group comes back together one final time to approve everything. So that vote will be to support the Final River Basin Plan or not to support it, right? And again, we're back to, can you live with it? Nobody's going to agree with everything. It's not going to be perfectly suited for every stakeholder group's needs or every individual preference, because we're all very different from a numbers or a non-numbers perspective. But can you support an implementation, and can you speak good things unless I can live with this and work to make it better as we move forward? Okay, so that's that vote. Today, the way the bylaws are written is the ratings will only be considered from RBC members. I don't think we have any alternates that's not been approved yet. Announcement we will have, he's on the phone, but John Crutchfield is officially retiring at the end of the year. And so his replacement has been named. He may be on the phone too, but there may be a different person for Duke Energy for John Crutchfield voting in March than is voting today. So the alternate is there, but John will be putting his vote in officially for that. One other part we have not discussed, and we've not discussed this as team, so I'm blindsiding Joe and Scott Brooke. But today, obviously, because she's still employed and IP is still open, when we come back in February or March, will we have a new representative from IP? Probably not. But should Megan still vote, I'm gonna push real hard to say that we need the industrial stakeholder group, and she's been at it for 2.5 years. Wherever Megan's working, we need to have Megan here and put in a vote so that we can have the final plan approved by that. So, it's coming fast, and Megan, I'll let you explain.
Maybe
your
that I can
situation.
get somebody else to be an alternate. I do not know yet. Closure team has not been decided. And obviously, there's going to be a team, so it may be that I can have somebody fill in.
Right. So just to give you brief history, and I will match this up for you so Megan can clean it up. So there are a number of facilities that IP operates in the US and around the world. They are closing some of those facilities. The IP facility in Georgetown has been decided to be closed. It was decided about a month or so ago. And come January 1st, I think January 5th may be your last day officially. Everybody at IP will be gone, except maybe one little operation there that does logistics. And they don't know the fate of that. And right now, as Megan will probably tell you, that I'll tell you out of line or off cuff, is they're not even sure how they're going to be closing the plant down between now and January 5th. But January 5th, IP will quit existing right now at Georgetown. So Megan is looking for her next following point. Hopefully it will be somewhere in the PD basin, right, Megan? So if some of you guys got good contacts for Megan, I think she's got some really nice opportunities, but she's always listening if you guys know somebody with an offer, right? You'd like to stay close to home with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything I'm saying about that that's on the line or anything you want to clean up?
We don't have a closure plan yet. They're still in development of that. As we know more, we'll be happy to share.
All right. So we'll resolve that in the coming weeks with the planning team. Facilitator will typically conduct a roll call, allowing each member to rate the draft plan one at a time and acknowledge the member's rating. So I think this was put into that planning document in RBC, just so each of you would have if you haven't had it, if you've noticed, we've tried to do a couple of things. We've tried to be a very open group throughout the process. And I've tried to let everybody speak, and I've gone around, probably y'all get tired of me wanting everybody to speak. But to try to get everybody to speak, not all facilitators will do that. Okay. And I've tried to call a lot of you guys between meetings and see you at meetings and get your opinion and check the plan. The other thing we tried to do was different than other basins, we formed these committees for every chapter. And we let a small working group analyze every chapter. We got comments from the bigger group, and then we approved those chapters one at a time. So we wouldn't get to this point and look back and say, I never agreed with chapter 3. We've all agreed with chapter 3, with the caveat that as things change, we would have to do it as the whole plan came together, which is what Matt showed you, which relatively speaking for this size document, those are really limited changes. And to everybody's point, we've really tried to work hard throughout the process to keep every stakeholder group and every individual perspective kind of heard. So I want you guys to let it all out here, but I really think this group has been close and has really shared a lot of this as we've gone along. But this is the time that the plan anticipated you would get your 1 to 5 vote and get your say your piece about the draft plan before it went public. So that's what we're doing now. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay.
By the way, just the thanks to everybody that throughout the process took time to review those plans and provide comments, because I thought that was very beneficial to do that early on and recognize that everybody has day jobs and this is a voluntary position. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So now what we need, and I'm gonna go online, 3 people online, and I'm gonna come around this room, we'll go back to 3 people online to close it out. But this is the vote. So 1 is full endorsement, you like it, good plan, all that kind of stuff. 1 is the best, right? 2, minor points of contingency, but basically you like it. 3 and 4 and 5 is where we start getting concerned. 3 is major points of contention, but you can live with it, right? That's kind of our thing of saying we can live with it, we can move on with it. You could give us a positive vote at the next meeting after public comment, but 3, we start throwing up a flag and saying, have we missed something? Have we done something wrong? But we really want everybody to like it, not just live with it. 4 is people with major reservations. You can't live with it. I'm gonna be opposed to it. People ask me, I'm probably gonna speak out against it when it's all over, right? That's the 4. And then 5 is you really don't like it. You just want to step back and go away. Then I'm leaving the process now. Brooke's smiling. That's fair though, isn't it? That's what it says.
Yeah.
That's what it says. I hope we don't have any 5s. I haven't heard anybody say that. It's not a 5 at this point, but it really doesn't matter though. This whole process here is not to lock you in as much as us to get it right. And what I will tell Joe and Scott and everything is if we got a lot of people with 4s and 5s, if it takes us 6 more months to get it where y'all can feel 1 and 2, we've fundamentally done something wrong and we want to change it. That's what this first vote is about. Test for consensus, right? So this is really where we express ourselves and really try to fine tune it. Something we fundamentally missed. We missed something. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that up during this process.
Quick comment on, if you do vote it for, you are requested to write a written statement that gets included in the draft plan on why you can't live with it and what changes you think are needed.
Right.
Just
Today
You
or
said that.
at the end?
before the final river basin, before the draft river basin plan is published, to put on public notice.
Yeah, and that's why we get a little squishy about when that public would be. If you guys are all kind of in the good side of this thing, we can get it to public notice pretty fast. If we see some fundamental 4s and 5s today, which is okay if we get them, but we'll want your comments back so we can have a shot at before we send it to public comment, making sure we don't look bad in public comment, something that we missed. So that's why I think the plan anticipates it in writing. Again, we're gonna catch it in the minutes, but anything else, Scott? No miss here. Joe, we're good. Joe, good.
When was after the vote, when we finish whatever sections of the plan, when do you plan to have it returned for us to put on public notice? What was the schedule for that again?
I think as quick as possible, like end of next week.
That's what I thought.
So that
Just checking. Okay.
I think you have to notice it. I forget how many weeks, but I think everybody's agreed we don't do it over Christmas. So if we gave it to you next week, it'd probably be middle part of, not the first week of January, but the second week of January, we might have a public
Right,
comment meeting.
that's right. Okay.
And again, the schedule anticipates it's going through March, so we're not trying to rush into February, but if everything would click, we might could get it done at the end of February.
I think we've tentatively chosen our public meeting to be January 7th, or for our first one, just. Would it come on a thing?
Okay, so
You said you preferred that the RBC members be at that public meeting or?
I would love for everybody here, if you couldn't be at the meeting, and bring a friend or two. Because it's always good, again, the public, what happens in all these things is. This plan gets close to finalizing, people say, I never knew about it, I never heard about it. If we want to hear it, let's hear it in the first round of public comment, and people like it or don't like it, right? That's when to hear about it, if we can. Michael's shaking his head, he does a lot of public meetings too. They always say that, they say, I never knew about that, you guys proving something I never, you said, man, we have busted our butt to put that in public, right? Did you say the date? Did you say that? We're gonna talk about it after this, but January 7th is the
It's
date.
gotta be 30 days, so depends on when the final, say final plan, even the draft plan is publishable.
And again, I don't want y'all, you guys are on your own dime and your own time, so I'm not saying be here for the meeting. I'm just saying if y'all can be here, it is a good show to be here and bring a friend and let your friend talk too, because that's what it's about, right? So if you can, that's fine.
And we would like RBC members to participate in presenting the plan.
Right.
I don't know, if we have talked in depth about what that plan, that first public meeting is gonna look like, have we?
No, but it will talk a little bit about it. It'll probably be like we did with the kickoff meeting. If you remember when y'all were recruiting, been on here. There was somebody from the PPAC, like Jeff Lineberger, somebody that came to speak. Buddy, you went to different basins and spoken. Scott will speak probably on the thing from a DES perspective. So there'll be 2 or 3 people that will speak. I won't speak. Matt won't speak, right? We're the hired hands that kind of help you do this. Buddy will speak. If Buddy doesn't speak, then Lindsay will speak. It's just the president or the chairman and vice chair. But if there's other people from the sectors, I would love to see somebody from each sector speak. We haven't talked about that yet. But even if you just have 3 or 4
welcome
minutes,
to speak.
yeah, this is your right to speak. You should speak, right?
Yeah, well. We need to hash those details out.
Yes.
How is this presented to the public? How is it put out there, the plan that we're doing? Is there, what's the formalities to do it?
Normally, I think it's been PowerPoint presentations like the kickoff meeting and a copy of the plan, a link to go to the plan. And that type of thing. It's not been, I don't think it's been like we don't have a station for every chapter.
Oh, it's for them to see it beforehand.
So is there like public notice? Public notice, what does that look like?
We'll post the plan on the website. So I hope we do some type of press release about it.
Yeah.
And do our normal avenues of outreach, which.
Your listserv and everything that you go to.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson has one and, we'll try to promote it as best we can, given.
But that was Scott's question to Matt, when are we gonna get it? Because they won't post it until they have that link.
Yeah, we
with the
need,
whole plan on.
we gotta post it 30 days before the first public meeting, so. Which is why I was asking them that'll be available to publish, because they're not on dictating the first meeting.
Will you send us a notice from this? So we can help people.
Yeah, we'll work with Tom to send an email out to the RBC that's been published or. Made publicly available.
Don't we have like an outline of now moving forward that we put on the screen once already?
Yeah.
Yeah, we put that up there.
Yeah, it's on, it's actually on the tail end of that presentation that I
Let
have.
me do this. Before we get too deep into this, we have the next block of time after we finish this vote, is gonna be about that meeting. About when we schedule the meetings and what'll be in it. But it will be, while the thing I will close with that though, as we go to that. Again, I look at Michael because I know a lot of these, some of you guys are doing it too, but these public meetings now, it's hard to say how many people show up. There may be 3 people here. There may be 20, but we're not putting a road through somebody's house. people don't come out, they stay home and watch TV or play video games. They don't, Michael, is that fair? It's not like it used to be, man, where people just showed up in droves for these things.
They're not impacted. They don't care until they get impacted.
I went to the one in Orangeburg and there was not a lot of people there. Were probably 3 people that made public comment, and one of them was like, people running the water, waiting for it to warm up while they're brushing their teeth, or something, something like that was being conservative on water. It was just some, so it was not like a huge turnout. I hope we have more than that here.
Yeah.
I certainly, that's why I was asking, how is it publicized? How is the public being known about it? Hopefully it generates some interest and get some good influence.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so let me start with this, and I'm just gonna go around. I'm gonna go to Tim Brown first. He's online. So I go to Tim. Tim, you see the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. Give us what you think, and then any other comments you want to add about the plan.
Well, I'm gonna rate it a 1. I fully endorse it. I think it's very thorough. I didn't see anything in there that I disagreed with, so I'm in full support of it.
Okay, welcome, Tim. Okay, Deborah, let me move over to you next. And you've been in it from the beginning, but you've been the official rep now for probably half of this. So how do you rate it?
Yes, sir. I want it to pass. I think it's definitely passable. Yes, sir. I guess at 1 or 2. There might be a couple of things might need to tweak in it, but I think I've done a great job. So 1 or 2. I'm sorry to be indecisive.
I'm gonna you because you're indecisive. We'll call it a 2.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, little things, let us know, and we can change it on this before it goes to public. It sounds like you like it, so it'll probably be, if it's a tweak for the final one, we'll do that. So
yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Very good. And then Jeff is online, but Jeff's already given us his rating. Is that right? It was a 2. So Jeff gave it a 2. So he had a class or something he had to do. So Jeff. So those are the 3. I got 3 more: Eric, Hughes, and John. But I'll do that after I do go around the room and here live. So trying to give everybody equal representation online and here.
I think I'll go with a 2. There's part
2.
There. Might not agree with, but as a whole, I think it's pretty good. A lot of time put into it. Been very pleased in being able to represent the agricultural community. And I thank y'all for putting up with me.
I think you added a lot. I think we're trying to reflect it in most of the document here. So I hope you feel that way. So okay, so that's a 2 from Jason.
1.
Megan, anything else you want to add about one's?
Everything I've wanted is in there.
Michael?
I'll go with the 1, but also the emphasis on communication. I think it's going to be critical because it's still reading it, still very technical document, and to be able to get the general public layman, it's going to have to be a lot of communication to bridge that gap. Even though it's well written, but it's still a very technical document. So there's going to have to be a lot of verbal communication with the public at large, I think, for them to be able to understand and buy into it.
Very good. Okay, Cynthia?
Wait. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the numbers are based on, for surface water, based on the SWAM model,
Yes.
which are based on not necessarily water usage, but water allocation. Or what do you call certificate? What is it? What's the, where you include where water is not actually being used, but it is.
Your permitted.
Permitted, yes.
There's one scenario that reflects that, but the rest of the scenarios reflect usage. So there's a current scenario, and that reflects actual usage, and then the projections, the moderate demand, high demand, build off of the current usage.
Okay. I can go with one.
So you go to 1. Okay. But again, I take it from the question, as saying Michael said, when we go out to the public, it's going to be very important to be able to communicate that
Yes.
in a way. And Jason's done and said yes too, so I'm just looking this way. Okay, very good. Cliff?
I rated the two, the points of contention. One of them could be a major point, but it's really, I mean, we'll call it minor. We list it. And it's just, I mean, how do you have a plan that only looks at drought, only looks at water shortages and not at floods when flooding has been such a big issue in the basin as well? So it's just, the plan can't fix it, but I don't know how to fix it, but, it's a contention I have with it.
Yeah, and it goes back to the original frame of the problem, right? So, and that's fine. Two's not a bad thing, guys. You don't, everybody doesn't have to love it. You can have reservations. That's helpful. So good.
I got a couple of other comments that I'd
Yeah,
like to
please.
put. I mean, I'd like to I'll send to Matt before this week's out, just tweaking a few things. The part where about industry, the way you've worded it now, it doesn't portray industry in as good a light as I'd like to see. As far as the fact that they're not covered by the rule that causes them to have drought management plans, but they still do a lot of things. And when droughts come, they will respond much better than the way it's written. So that one paragraph, I may have some comments. I will have some comments for you before Friday.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Give us a couple others for the whole group. And you got any other little tweaks you want to talk about?
I think the intent is for it to be communicated in the way that you described. So yeah, I'm eager to hear that.
Michael, you've been here the whole time, man. Government community gets kicked sometimes. What do you think? How do you feel?
It won't. I think everybody's worked together really well. There was a lot of hard work put into this. I sent out the original draft to 3 or 4 people. And they were like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna get through this, right? So I'm glad to see the executive summary from it. Made it a lot easier.
Beat your chest and say, hey, just call me.
Yeah.
I wrote most of this. I said, whoa.
That's correct.
He said it was. Question back here, Joe?
No. We were just looking at schedule, please.
Okay, Lindsay?
I'm gonna go with a 2 only because I wanna look at the final executive summary again. And when we were talking, I wanna read it again because the things that people, the things that are most important to us need to really be highlighted there. Because the majority of people who look at this are never gonna get beyond the executive summary. And so.
So that's the big reason it's not a 1 for you.
Right,
So
I just.
you like the group, you like the chapters,
yeah,
everything you like, except you just want one more blush.
Right.
Okay, good. 2 for Lindsay. Snipe?
I'm gonna go with a 2. And the biggest reason is I haven't studied it. I've been guilty the last couple of weeks with other stuff going on, and I need to study it more.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with the plan that I know of, but I need to study it better myself.
Okay.
See if I find anything. So I'll leave the door open a little.
Okay. I'd expect that from you. I think that 2's a good score on you because you've got a lot of thoughts on a lot of different topics. Good. Doug?
I'll go with 2. I keep getting a little tap on the shoulder about the water study that we are. The good thing is that it's being recognized in the summary as something that needs to take place. The water model. But it keeps sticking.
Okay.
But as far as the overall, it's good. I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed being a part of this, but I have really had an eye-opening time here with basically understanding those actors better. And I appreciate being a part of this group.
But you like it, so it's a 2?
Yeah, I'm a 2.
Okay, very good.
It's probably a 1, but I'm a 2.
But you like it, you like it. All right, buddy.
How soon do you need the comments this week? So you can get it out?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
I'm 1. When I came in on this council on the front end, I really didn't know what to expect. Kind of had a general idea. So each month was certainly an experience. It seemed like some months our foot was on the accelerator, and there were some months it wasn't.
But that was the process. That was a process to go through, things developed, data coming in. And also the input from the individuals. It gave them an opportunity to process things a little longer, possibly. So what I feel good about it is because I saw that we have some review committees for each chapter, and they know their stuff very well. They're good stakeholders. They're in there. They're here for a reason, because not only for what they do for a living, but because they have a desire to see it better, and for them to have their inputs and their blessings on it. I know we got some twos, which is, in my opinion, is minor, that they can get together. But as a group overall, I think they did an excellent job. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect. I had an opportunity to meet some good folks, meet Cynthia, a connection from Hopkins, and I had a little deal with Hopkins years ago, and I shared with her in that community with my work, and Jason and people in general. It's a good group of people. I'd like to know they're in my contacts, each one of them, and it goes a long ways. But the reason I'm a one is because I believe in their review, not mine. Very good. Okay, let me go back online. I think everybody here is given their thing. Let me start with Eric. Eric Krieger, you're on. You've been a part of a couple of these, I think, or at least.
Yeah. Thank you, JD. I'm gonna come in at a one. Actually, I've gone back and forth between the one and the two, and and the two was heavily weighted with the issues with the groundwater model, and and really that was out of our control in many ways. I think you can look at it as like, is this the best possible plan we can have, or is it the best possible plan that this group can create given the information that it has? And so I'm going to go with the latter and call it a one. I really like that we are addressing implementation, at least making a recommendation that there be some pointed capacity for implementation. I think that's just really important. And secondarily, I really appreciate that we're looking at the interaction of both the human and the natural environment here. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with a one.
Thank you, Eric. Very good. Hughes, what do you think, Hughes? Did we lose him? No, he's there.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm here.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So, Eric, Buddy, Doug, I think Cliff, a lot of people have made great points. I'm gonna give it a one. I think you guys have done an awesome job facilitating this project, and the communication has been incredible. And I know if something comes up, we'll deal with it. So yeah, a one for me.
All right, very good. Thank you, Hughes.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
John Crutchfield, you're the last one I have on my record online. So John, you're the last one here today.
Yeah, JD, I'm going to give it a one. I think it's a very solid plan. I think it's based on the best available data and science we have. The groundwater model didn't, we haven't gotten to that step yet, but I think with the empirical data analysis and what we used, I think it's a good plan, just as Eric voiced. I think it's best, one of the good plans, a good group develop it. So I give it a one.
Very good. Thank you, John. And for the rest of everybody, Bob had a legislative request with one of his legislators to visit. So Bob Perry's not here. We'll get in touch with Bob, Tom and I, and get his score. He did not indicate anything wrong with it. In fact, he said he liked it. So I think that's positive. It'll probably be a one or two for Bob. John Rivers, I did not talk to him, but I did leave him a message yesterday, and I did not hear back from him. But I assume John and I have a good enough relationship. He even shared with me that I think that he didn't like it. So I'm going to anticipate he'll be a positive score too. And then I talked to Frances yesterday. I forgot. I don't think she's online, is she? She said she might could join online, but she had some other commitment this morning. But she seemed to be positive with everything too from her perspective. So those are three off the top of my head. Am I missing somebody else?
Nope. You're going to follow up and get official.
I'll get their official ratings. Tom will probably have an email to me and Tom so that Tom has it for the official record. So, that's that. And again, I want to go back to what Matt said. This has been a phenomenal group. I don't think it happened by accident. It happens, y'all have to want to do it together, and y'all have. And we've tried real hard to give you all the different venues and ways to give us feedback through the process, but it doesn't happen unless y'all are all, as Buddy said, doing your homework and talking to each other, because that's what drives you. So I really appreciate what we've done to this point together and we review it. So with that, let's shift gears to process of any other comments. Let me ask that first. Online, anybody that went first, like Tim Brown, do you want to say anything else? Or does anybody else in the room have any other comments on this today's roll call test for consensus?
No, I'm good, JD.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay. Okay. So you want to pull that slide up on the schedule?
Yeah. Just being that PowerPoint.
So go through it real quick again as it goes through. So we'll get a button up. If we get the informal comments back, we'll try to tweak them, get everything to Scott by Friday. That way it can be advertised. It needs 30 days to be advertised. That link will be provided to the public. Whatever date that is, we decide. I think we've decided previously, we can have that discussion. We'll do it here again like this. That will be hybrid, Scott, like we're doing today. Is that right? Have you done these hybrid or just live on the public meetings?
They're just.
Public meeting live. Okay, so it'll just be a live
Yeah, that's fine.
public meeting. Next step will be after that, and she'll explain it. Whatever comments come in additionally or that we didn't make before we went to public, that'll be our time to tweak those again, whether that takes a week or a month. We'll just get it done, and then once it goes back, it'll go back to Scott to re-advertise again for a second public meeting. If you didn't get your friends and family out here for the first one, maybe it'll attract enough attention and awareness in that interim to have more people here or more comments if needed. We'll have the second one. Any other comments we get from that? We should be very few. We'll get that in final form and but probably after the first meeting, we'll go ahead and schedule this once we see the first comments coming in. We'll feel pretty good to schedule y'all coming back together for a final vote of the plan. So, ladies, yes.
Where is the, I know we've said this, but where's the public, where's the draft gonna be posted?
It'll be online. There'll be a link for it
On
online.
our website that I always send people to if they want to know about.
Yeah, it'll be on the PD River Basin Council website or planning page.
You want to reiterate anything I said or?
No, I don't think so. The one thing I did want to point out was that this is from our October meeting, and it sounds like there's a couple of things that we'll want to tweak before the plan goes out. I think Lindsay, you wanted to give the executive summary of final review. Okay, so it may take us a few more days beyond December 10th. I think that's Tuesday next week to get that finalized and compiled and then ready to post on the website. So
I think maybe realistically, that first public meeting is probably going to be January earliest. That's acceptable.
And I did have these switched.
Between the holidays and all, just getting things moving might be a little bit more.
and that's kind of, yeah, what we have.
You're also then approaching another holiday weekend, would be Martin Luther King weekend.
Yeah.
What was the date you threw out there, Scott?
I said mid, which maybe.
That's about.
Yeah, that's
about what it is on
That's
this.
what, yeah. But maybe that slides a day or whatever, days, but.
Yeah, and I said this wrong too, guys. We do have our final vote before we have the final public meeting. I didn't realize that. Is that right?
I think the final public meeting, you say what changed pursuant to the public review. So we had the first public meeting, we talked through the plan, there's a 30-day comment period. This 30-day response period.
Does that have to be 30 days?
It doesn't. So if we don't get many comments, then.
This is where the
all
compression, yeah, we
compresses.
can compress that by 2 or 3 weeks in there and would get us done closer to the end of February, maybe than the end of March.
Yep. So we would then report to you what changed due to public comment. You take your final vote, and then the second public meeting, could be like right after that, where we present the final plan. These are the changes that we made pursuant to public comment, and then.
This is really not any kind of comment period here. It's just really rolling the plan out. So it's after our final vote.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I had that backwards a little bit. One round of public comments.
I guess my question, how is it given to the public? Is it just on our website, or is there a press release, or how is the public notified that this is out there?
Well, it'll be posted on our website and I would hope that we could do a press release as well.
DES website?
Yeah, we typically we'll compile some kind of mailing list. Whatever contact you'd like to provide to us, please do. And sure, we'll send that out, that press release out to that mailing list. And we'll get it notified as best as we can.
And again, I think it's been like all along, ambassadors for this process. If you want the Farm Bureau to get, I'm looking at Jason for that. Lindsay, if you want the Rural Water
I'm going
Association.
tomorrow, that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Farm Bureau, whoever we could.
Yeah, y'all tell Scott and Joe and Brooke who you want and do it. And if y'all want to have to schedule a conference call with the group, or you got a meeting coming up, I'm sure somebody or I'll get on the call or be somewhere and we can talk about it. But it's really up to y'all how far you want to go. But there'll be a standard process that the DES will use.
And we'll have the public meeting in this room.
That's our plan right now, once we pick a date.
Or the.
Yeah.
All of them still outdated.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of different formats I could take. I'll just tell you that when you try to do like what I call the DOT meetings, we have stations and try to really get the feedback. It takes a lot of work, and you really need to use that technique. My experience, I love to do that technique, but you need to know there's a lot of people. Right? It is a huge waste of time and resources if 5 people show up. And I don't think we're going to get 100 people to show up with this guy. It won't happen that way. Hopefully we'll get 20, but I think a PowerPoint discussion format, with people discussing certain parts of it and y'all speaking your piece, that will be enough to generate public comment. Scott, you agree with that, or?
You mean,
keep it simple, just a presentation type.
yes.
Meeting, not stations or a lot of detailed
I
stuff.
think one key to this is, we want this to be presented as the council stakeholders plan, not DES's plan. Meaning it'd be great if we could have RBCs be willing to speak to different things in the plan themselves instead of having me or Joe or Brooke up here talking the whole time. I mean, I can do that if y'all want, but I want it to be presented as y'all's plan, not DES's plan. Does that make sense?
John Boyer shared the presentations from other basins, and there's a lot in it, and it looks really nice and it's great. It seems like it kind of gets into a lot of detail. You feel like that's been well received, or would it be good to sort of take a step back, or?
We could maybe at some point share that presentation with the group. I imagine before the public meeting, we're gonna have to at least meet virtually. If we go.
Oh, yeah.
And we could share that presentation and get people's feedback on it. I can see where maybe it could be simplified. Talking about communicating to the public and make people, that's something to consider, yes. And John did speak, he did speak to a lot of the plan himself, he was willing to do that.
Okay. I mean, we're willing to do it, but again, your point, in my head,
but I know, I mean. I can work with the group and how, what role they want us to play or y'all to play, we just need to have this conversation.
well, y'all know my style about statement outside. I don't want to see a bunch of 45-minute presentations. I'd rather have more of y'all speak for 5 minutes. And Michael Hemingway getting up there talking from a municipal perspective is much more credible than me talking about 1 million gallons a day and 500,000 gallons and the load. And if Michael gets up there and tell most of the people that he's been part of this, it's been his thing. He's looked at the municipal side, or Tim Brown, whoever it is that's speaking. That goes a lot further in 5 minutes, Michael, than somebody speaking for 30 minutes of numbers. So What time of day are we looking at this?
Gonna be evening,
Cause after 5 o'clock, right? It's gonna be.
usually 6 to 8.
So it
Yeah,
gives
we do.
people more working an opportunity to be here just so that you can make sure you think on your schedule. But it would certainly be good for different stakeholders to certainly be present at that meeting. So some of the questions may be right up your alley if from the public that may be here. Again, I think from the DES perspective is what we heard early, and I think what I hear in any state or place I go is one, people want to know was this, as Scott said, is just this the DES plan that they concocted and ram down our throats? The answer is that's no, but people are going to hear that from y'all, that this was a stakeholder-based plan that we put together and spent over 2 years putting together, right? That's why it's important for y'all to talk about it later. Early on, everybody jumped up and said, well, this is going to be a regulatory document, not a plan. And it's, no, this is a plan, not a regulatory document. They'll have to speak to that kind of thing because they have the authority in that. And they'll probably have to talk about how they see implementation going. They're part of implementation. But everything else to me is best said by you guys, not by them, as the agency, lead agency, or us as consultants or facilitators. The more y'all can say, the better. That's my thoughts anyway, but we'll work on that schedule and the details. You agree with that?
I think so. No, I think maybe some of the more technical stuff, if they want, DS staff to cover some of that, but when it comes to recommendations by sector and different things like that, maybe that's when the different sectors can speak to some of it.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's ways to do this. We just need to figure it out.
Well, whether they'll be affected, I think y'all will probably agree, is the recommendations. So we kind of need to tell them what the recommendations are, let them ask questions and give us feedback, and that's where the staff or the technical team can come in and help y'all talk a little bit more. But recommendations be where they want to start. They don't care about the river going in the drought until they know how we're going to prevent the river from going into the droughts. Right.
Will the public meetings be Zoom?
No, that's what I just asked you. I think they're just going to be live. But the links will be available and they will have a written comment period. And from experience, I'll tell you guys, it used to be old days, and I'm getting grayer every day. But people would show up and want to speak and do this. Now, there's a few people that show up, but you'll get bombarded by the stakeholder groups with written comments. If there's a tendency now, it's for the written comments, and I think all the DS people will probably agree with that. You probably see that locally too sometimes. Maybe not much locally. Locally, they still show up though.
Yeah, I don't think any of them will show up. I was hoping they might listen to it on Zoom.
We don't, the other thing you don't want a Zoom bomb. You don't want a Zoom bomb. I've had one of those before, guys. I told you about that.
Here.
That's the first time we had a public meeting on a comprehensive growth plan. You remember when we had it here?
Yes.
And I told you I've had it happen to me twice before. One was on a public meeting about a local government comprehensive growth plan. And we had all these people on the Zooms and all that stuff popped up and the public just went stupid after that meeting. Like, how did y'all let that happen? What are y'all doing?
What y'all doing during your meetings?
But see, you can't really restrict people. If you do a public meeting with Zoom, you'd have to come a different format. People hack in. It's complicated.
What's the format for written comments? Is it form or something?
We provide, we actually past councils and public meetings had the public submit those to Clemson directly.
Okay.
And Joe, I believe you said that was still okay to have Tom compile the public comments. So they can do this. So I think we get Tom's, get an email address. I don't know if it's your personal.
Yeah, and it's a standard, it's a SC water models at Clemson.edu.
And an address they can send them to Melvin.
Okay.
And that'll be in the presentation. That'll be on the slide in the presentation.
Yeah.
And posted on the website too, so.
Are those gonna be viewable to the public in real time or?
We haven't been doing that.
I don't know how I can do that. It just comes into an email. And
They are documented in the final plan.
Planning.
They are documented in the final plan.
And again, we'd like to hear as many individual comments from your stakeholders group as possible, but if it's a form letter that they just all send in, Tom or we'll consolidate that as a form letter, not as 10 million individual comments, because they all say the same
Right.
thing, and the spirit, we just say we got 20 comments or 10 million comments that say this, period. So it's not as important that you send us form letters as it is just to give individual perspectives, if that's the case.
And some comments just get, thank you for the comment, kind of response. They're not all included in the plan. There's suggested changes.
Right. It'd be in the log in the back, but it wouldn't be up front. So let me ask you this question when we get down to our final vote, which would be, I'm gonna assume if we could do the vote on the 4th Tuesday in February for y'all's planning purposes, that would be a good tentative target. Would that be truthful if we could get it to that?
I won't be able to make that day for us.
Okay.
But I can still give my vote before the.
Okay. Anybody else with any problems? I'm just trying to let you, I know y'all planning the schedule, so if we did the 4th Tuesday at 6, well, that RBC meeting could be at 9, just like this is. And it would probably, it could be hybrid, it'd probably be hybrid, like we've been doing.
We've done some of those virtually,
Yeah.
because that's all we're doing is basically taking your up or down vote. So we could just do it virtually if y'all want to.
Yeah, I think we
We've done that
plan,
in other days.
we plan that 9 a.m. virtually on that day. And then we can pivot off of that once we see what happens in the next,
That's February 14th,
it'll be February 25th.
25th, yes.
We may need some people here, we may need to move the date to March, but that'll give you a placeholder. And Tom will wait to check for this facility. Well, you wouldn't have to if it's happening. But still need to check for this facility because we need to be one for some reason.
When we get a date nailed down, it's usually not an issue.
All right, other comments from online? Okay, so that's scheduling next steps. With that, we're tracking a little early, so that's good. Lunch is still coming though, right?
Not here yet, but it should be.
Okay. So it'll be here by 11:30 or 11:15 anyway, but we still got 5 or 10 minutes. I do. I think I've all said everything about the plan itself, but we'll get together, hard as it is to believe, one more time, and that may be virtual. So while we're together, before I give it to Scott and Joe and Brooke and Buddy, kind of want to go around the room again and just any other comments about the process or anything. Everybody's been positive. You don't have to get gooey or anything, but anything else you want to say about all the time we spent together and all the work we put into it, to each other? Brooke, you got something?
I actually have a question. Who in here, I was thinking about the term lengths. And I was wondering who is falling off and who is continuing on during the implementation.
Yeah, we usually do that at the vote meeting.
Okay, I just didn't know who was.
Yeah, we are over some.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm 2, 3, or 2. Okay.
We'll try to get Tom to get you the
Okay, I was
official
wondering.
list out. Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Yeah, we'll want to know who would be interested in continuing on, who wants to step off, those things. We'll want
Okay.
that. But I think probably springtime is by the best time.
Thank you.
Tim or Deborah, any other comments? I'll just kind of call on you. Any other comments about the process or anything else you want to say today, Tim or Deborah?
I can say I enjoyed the process. I thought it was very thorough. Glad to work with all you other people.
Deborah, anything on your end?
She stepped off.
She stepped off, okay. Eric, any final comments as we go around the room today?
Nothing special. Just feels good to be at this point.
Yes. Jeff, get back on.
Steinmetz, no.
Okay. Hughes, anything from you?
No, all good.
Okay. John, this is definitely your last time to talk to the group, I guess. You're getting ready to see your grandkids on a more regular basis.
Yeah, after 44 years, I'm going to call it a career.
Oh, wait, man.
Wow.
But, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with the council on developing this plan. It's a great group of folks. One of the best working groups I've ever been involved with. With any plan, you could always improve things, but I think it's a very solid plan. It's based on science, and it's certainly interacting. I got to know a lot of folks and appreciate the different uses of water in the basin and the challenges that folks face when dealing with water. So overall, good process. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I do wish all of y'all the best professionally and personally, and thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Jason, anything else you want to add or strike? Megan?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Michael?
Pretty good.
Cynthia?
I was very apprehensive. I hadn't heard of the interactions with the other River Basin councils, but I'm very satisfied and pleased with the process we went through and the interactions among the participants, the council members. So, my fears were alleviated.
Very good. Very good.
Enjoyed the process.
You guys are a great group. Appreciate the time, and it's been a good process.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Enjoyed it. I think Matt did a great job of putting everything together, all of our concerns, highlighting the concerns, highlighting where we're deficient. Just think it turned out good. Everybody's with it.
Lindsay?
Yeah, it's nice to be part of a non-contentious.
Well, it doesn't have to be, y'all agreed to work together, and that makes a big difference, right? It could have been contentious, but it was y'all really worked together good, so. It's not.
I'm honored to be on this committee, since I don't represent a group, and I sure learned an awful lot. It's great.
I echo that, learned a lot, enjoyed it.
Okay, but you get the final. Okay, now let me go to Brooke. Brooke's our project manager. Brooke, anything you want to add to it?
No, I really enjoyed this process. This is the first time I've done anything like this before. Really, had a great time. Speaking science to stakeholders and helping to, others to understand something that can be quite complex. It's been a pleasure doing this. It's really nice to meet all of you.
Andy, how about you? You're the quiet guy that handles so many of the details right behind the scenes. I don't ask you enough, but anything you want to add here today?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody on the RBC for their participation, cooperation, helping getting put this together.
Scott?
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for sticking this out. This process took a lot longer than the state anticipated. The fact that we didn't have the groundwater model, that sticks with me too. I feel some responsibility. We did promote that and it didn't work out, and that does bug me. So I apologize for that. But just know that work is ongoing, that groundwater modeling effort. We hope to still run scenarios with that model and be able to incorporate that as a valuable tool, hopefully in a later iteration of planning. So wish I could give you a better timeline for that right now, but I don't think I can do that. But that project is still ongoing, and we're going to try to get that completed. We'll keep y'all posted if there's anything important updates. We'll share that with you. So yeah, again, just thanks for your patience sticking this thing out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, we know it's been frustrating for you too, because this is your thing and Brooke's thing and Andy's thing. And the groundwater thing, I know.
Yeah,
Frustrated.
the last thing I'll add is, and this comment's already been made, is that just learning more about different sectors, the challenges they face. I think as state employees, we hear that, and I think that makes us better employees, believe it or not. So it's good to go through each basin process. We just keep learning and gain more appreciation of what you guys do.
Well, it's a little thing. I think John, you and Alex met on your farm, didn't you? Just to see the impacts of things. So I said John, Jason, Alex, so it's things like that. Joe, anything from big picture DES going forward or anything?
I would just say congratulations to you all on, persevering and sticking with this and having a good plan in front of you, good draft. And, there's a lot of opportunity for stakeholder involvement in water planning in the state of South Carolina right now. And, there's, hopefully you'll continue to serve on this board, on this committee, and for your region of the state, but there's also an opportunity to contribute for in the Water SC state water planning. So I encourage you all to plug into that and listening sessions and things going on across the state. So just congratulations, and we certainly appreciate it. And I've learned a whole lot in this process as well, and look forward to continuing it.
Matt?
Yeah, in working with other groups like this, I've heard, and maybe I've mentioned this before, that I've heard the plan is one thing, but almost an equal benefit of these kind of groups is just that understanding, and you all have talked about this, that understanding of the challenges in different water use sectors, but building those relationships too are really an enduring benefit of these. And that's really, you all, I've been very impressed with the way you've talked through issues in very respectful and thoughtful ways. And I commented to JD early on, there's nobody crazy on this. I just really appreciated getting to know all of you and working on this plan. It's been a great experience.
That crazy comment brings up a little thing. Nothing to do with anything with the council, but you all are wonderful people. I live in the middle of a vacation destination area. And if you ever need a place to stay or advice for the Pawleys Island area, feel free to call me.
Oh, wait a minute, what's your number? No.
With Scott for a long time, but I worked for Tom a long time. But Tom, we've seen a couple of these together now. So any comment from you about this?
This is my first time working in the PD, so it's been great to meet all of y'all and learn about y'all Basin. I learned a lot, so appreciate it.
And I'll before I give it to Buddy, President, I just thank you guys again. Y'all have done everything that we've asked you to do to try to get you to work together and to give each other feedback. And most of you have always been painfully blunt with me and told me what you think. And I've tried to, no, I mean that half-heartedly or laughable one way, but very appreciative in others, because as you get in these groups and sometimes people dance around and really aren't part of it. They act like they're part of it, but they're really not. Y'all all genuinely came in and told me what you think and what you want, what you need. And that's how we make it better for y'all. But it all starts with y'all. And I was concerned when the process strung out. I'm always concerned when organization changes happen, and we've been through one with the state. Y'all haven't seen, Clemson's been through a slight one behind the scenes. And I always worry about those things over a long period of time affecting the group. But man, y'all have hung in there, and for the most part, the core group is stuck together. And y'all have given your time and worked with each other, and man, I can't ask for anything more than that. So still got a little ways to go to finish, but we're substantially there now. I really, really appreciate it. So with that, Buddy, I give it to you. You're the chairman, and you get to close it down and take us to lunch.
All right. I'm going to say what's on my mind without trying to say too much. Because it's been a great experience. I know when I walked through the door, if you'd asked me about what a cone of depression was right off day one, I'd have had to refer to somebody else. Meeting Scott and Brooke that first day, not knowing how this was going to develop, and this developed to a great relationship, not just as a council, but as a relationship. But using aquifers as storage as they are, never thought of that. There's so much of an education that came along with it. And the way I came to be part of this was just through the email I got from DNR. Email, oh, that's interesting. I read up on it, filled out the application, applied to it, and here we are. Wow, what a thing to be a part of with just stepping forward instead of stepping back or standing still. And I think for each one of you as a stakeholder from your group, you had to step forward. To be sitting where you're sitting right now, or being online where you are right now, you're plugged in from not just because you're good at what you do or your knowledge, but you had a willingness to serve. With our serving, we're not just serving ourselves, we're serving our PD area, we're serving the state, because some of the things that we do And here may be built off of for other river basins. It's not just us, but your thought, your inputs and your knowledge and your desire to step forward. It's been good for all of us. It's been a great experience for me to be able to get to know you individually. And I try to make a point to call your name when I walk in the room or walk by you so that I get to know you. Because during a conversation, if we're standing up and you tell me your name 2 seconds later, I can't tell you your name. I don't know if either of you are like that, but to stay in that circle and stay in that group and get to know you, I think we've got some folks that are pretty sharp for the stakeholders that they represent. I came in at large, not any single, not industrial, not agricultural, not the utility side or the golf course side. I think I got my hands in several things, but I do have a love for the PD. Just the river, the water source, for what it is and what it brings to our area. And without it, boy, we would be in a hurry. I'm a real estate appraiser for the federal government. My territory now is everything east of the Mississippi. Once we get across there, you talk about water. Well, how much it values a piece of property, just water rights. So being involved in this is very educational for me with my job also. So it's interesting, and it's a great resource that we've got. And I think right now we got plenty of it, right? But I do know that there will be a day coming that industry will probably have to scale back just a little bit on the seasonal basis because of a drought, but they have that drought management plan in place, hopefully, that helps them get through those times. But whatever we can do as a basin, I think we've done a pretty good job. Jason, I know you did a lot of times you had some input and it was all good input. And it was good to listen to it. Water to use a cost, right? Anytime you have to use it's a cost. And in your business, it's all about efficiency. Michael, is it a cost? You'd rather use groundwater. It's cheaper to deal with groundwater than surface water.
Yeah.
There's just so much more that we've learned through the process in the golf course. You don't want to use water no more than you need to. That's a dead cost to you, but it's an insurance policy for you to have it. Like I said, I can keep rambling because it's been such a great experience. But each one of you agencies, Joe to Brooke, Andy, Tom, you've always kept us online. We did have that one hiccup where it was kind of X-rated thing that jumped up. I wish I had a photo of your expression during that because you couldn't hit a button fast enough. It wasn't like your dog paddling over it. People. But it was a great experience. JD, awesome job, moderating. Matt, thanks to all your input. You've always been open. Mine of your phone calls have been good and very educational for me. So thank you. That's it.
All right, guys, we're dismissed. Let's have some fellowship, some lunch. Thank y'all.
So next meeting,
Next meeting will be February for you guys. That's right. In February.
David said he's
Yeah.
only like 6 months.